this session, we will explore the role of digital technology in promoting financial inclusion. Attendees will learn about the challenges and opportunities of using digital technology to provide access to financial services for marginalized populations. This session will also cover topics such as the use and growth of digital payments, the importance of financial literacy and education, and the potential for digital technology to derive inclusive growth in India and beyond. So now let us learn more about digitalizing cash, deriving financial inclusion through a panel discussion. So with this, please join me to welcome the moderator of this session, Mr. Abhay Parekh. Can we please put our hands together? So Mr. Abhay Parag is Head AePS, NFS, and Market Initiatives, National Payment Corporation of India. Now I would request our speakers for the session to please join us up on stage, starting from Mr. Ravi Rajagopalan, CEO, Bosan System. Mr. Sunil Kulkarni, CEO, BCFI. Mr. Sumil Vikamsey, MD, Hitachi Payment Services. Mr. Parag Mehta, founder and CEO, Evolute Group. So gentlemen, if time permits, we'll take few questions from the audience. So I would hand over to the moderator.
Thank you. Please. So thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you for joining us. So the session is on digitalizing cash, and when I say digitalizing cash, I mean digitalizing the journey of dealing with cash, and through that driving financial inclusion and graduating the residents in the country to move to digital payments. With that, let us start this discussion, and thanks. We have esteemed guests on the panel, and we'll be using the forum here to talk about how we can improve the experience and which helps to reach the financial inclusion. There is a need to have cash at the locations where people are still, or for the profile of customers who are still yet to go full digital. And for that, how we solve and how we help them to move ahead. So through this, let us start with Sumilji. Yeah. So you have a rich experience in self-serve devices, maybe ATM, recyclers. You are operating a large, one of the larger one, WLA, as a white label ATM operator. Also had the cash business, right? So what is your view on this industry, ATM and recyclers?
So thanks, Abhay. See, broadly, if you see this whole industry, and I will call it a self-service industry, whether it is ATMs or recyclers, broadly, it depends on three matrices. The first matrix is about the retail payment growth. The second is about the cash in circulation, as obvious. And third is about the debit card penetration. Now,
money that is already in the bank account, now we need to find use cases which can start making the customer comfortable to use that money from the bank account itself. So there are few use cases like right now there is a very large domestic money transfer business which is cash to bank. Now if you look at it, pretty much everybody goes to an ATM, withdraws cash, and then does a money transfer. So I'm sorry, I think I'm reducing his business. What will happen is that, why can't you just do biometric debit and then money transfer in an assisted mode? So this becomes a assisted Aadhaar to bank account transfer. And that would be significantly convenient to customer, cost effective to banks, and it's a win-win for all. That's the starting point for customer to use their bank account for comfortable money transfer because it's a Aadhaar-based transfer. The second is use Aadhaar Pay for assisted digital commerce. It could be ONDC or any of the commerce players which are doing. So Aadhaar Pay can be used where nobody is bothered about the MDR. By the way, Aadhaar MDR is the lowest, 25 bips. So you have Aadhaar Pay. And the third one is that part bank, when your cash out is happening, you can start delivering part cash and part CBDC as and when it is launched. So the moment you have CBDC launched, you can have the smartphone penetration. I mean, I give this number very loosely. You have today about, Dilip talked about 350 million UPI customers. Maybe I think in terms of monthly users, it may be lesser. We have 550 million WhatsApp monthly active users, which means between 200 to 300 million are having a mobile with smartphone with data, but are not using the smartphone. So how do we make sure that they use it? So part cash with physical cash and part cash with CBDC is the starting point for people to start using smartphone for digital cash. And the last one is that you could potentially use the UPI for ATM, now UPI for micro ATM. So you could do a cash out with UPI for micro ATM and do the same thing that you are doing in a smaller way. So these are the use cases which will start increasing the transactions from their bank account and go beyond that. Thanks.
Thanks. So now let us hear from Ravi. So you are operating IMT, right? And IMT network is one of its kind. Do let us know how it was conceptualized and the experience on it, right? What it solves for the customer.
Thanks, Abhay, and good to be here. So the IMT payment system is a complete regulatory one-off. In fact, informally, when we visit the RBI, because we are a regulated entity, some of our regulators often call me as Mr. One-Off, because if you look at the RBI website, there is no other entity like this in existence. So the basis for the IMT payment system was a belief that I have long held, is that access to cash is the strongest guarantor of digital behavior. Because the willingness and the propensity to transact digitally is a function of your perception of risk. And that risk is a function of what is your disposable income, what is the value at risk in the transaction. I mean, would I make a 5 crore payment if it was possible on UPI, or would I make a 5,000 rupee payment? Would I prefer to write a check to a builder, or would I prefer to pay over NEFT? These are decisions that we all take every day, and these are decisions that even people who take payments make for you. They'll say, don't pay me by NEFT, write me a check, because the check under Negotiable Instruments Act has a different connotation altogether in terms of liability and so forth. For all these reasons, we believe that access to cash is the strongest guarantor of digital behavior. So the IMT payment system was conceptualized essentially to cater to the large market for cash in rural India. And since India has had a strong migration story from rural India to urban India, and this is now a very hackneyed, well-known tale, so I don't have to repeat it for you. Sending money from an urban area or from an economic area to an economically underserved area was always a problem, and I think is still a problem today. It has not been solved fully. So the way we found was to cater to India's unbanked population, or population who are not able to, do not know how to operate a bank account, by creating a network of ATMs belonging to banks that can all function without using a card. So though UPI ATM was launched recently, with full apologies, we beat you guys.
The customer should have choice.
I know, but
we NPCI, we firmly believe.
Correct, but we beat you to it. So the cardless ATM was a concept that we brought to India from looking at other markets. So the payment system was always conceptualized not as a bank enabler, but as a national payment system. So we took the bold steps when we set this up to ask the regulator, Reserve Bank of India, for the ability to act as a clearing and settlement agent, which was unthought of at that time. And we were breaking new ground. And thanks to the vision that the Reserve Bank of India showed, as well as predecessors of the current inhabitants of the Ministry of Finance, who saw the case for providing exemptions under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act to this urgent use case, we were able to create this payment system. So today, There are some 10 banks that are members. We pride ourselves on being the largest cardless ATM network in the world. There are 70,000 ATMs. And as we will discuss further in this conversation, there are some very interesting extensions that we are working on with NPCI to basically fulfill the vision that Sunil just laid out, that ultimately someone should be able to transact with cash or be able to get cash from a number of outlets without having to withdraw money from a bank account, take it to an outlet, hand it over to a retailer, pay a fee, and then go to the other place and get cash out, all of which adds costs to the system. So it has been a very interesting and experience, I have to say. Our clearing and settlement agent is the Reserve Bank of India, but our conduit to the clearing and settlement system of the Reserve Bank is the NPCI. And I think Abhay, in his previous avatar in NPCI, was the man who created the mechanism for us to push an electronic file every day in the morning to NPCI, and NPCI pushes it to the RBI, and we come back. So if anyone is interested in the beauty of creating something like this, and is 100% Indian homegrown innovation, by the way, we're very proud to say it, please get in touch, because we love to talk about, every man and woman here likes to talk about what they do. And we love to talk about how we built this and how it actually works, because it is actually very elegant in the way it works.
Sure. Thanks, Ravi. So, we have self-serve devices. We have network of BCs which help in assisted mode. We have networks which help in remittance or cardless cash withdrawal, as we say on ATM. But all this requires acceptance infrastructure. And we have veteran here, Mr. Parag, right? And so with your experience on acceptance infrastructure, mainly on device side, and since now many options are coming, now QR has come on the ATM as well. What's your views on that? And you may throw light on how you see this market in the acceptance side.
Thank you, Abhay, because the acceptance infrastructure is the domain which we are from many years. And I'll rather use 2 pointers here. Is like, one is the behavior and second is the trust. How are you going to influence a better behavior? We have seen with the demonetization also, it's a pushed behavior, but ultimately what we all are eyeing at, how we can create that required pull from the market. And the second is on the trust side of the thing, where we don't want to keep the cash in our pocket, but we have to park that in the bank, and ultimately we all are happy doing the digital transaction joyfully. So I will rather use the analogy of road infrastructure. Now, when we started building the road infrastructure, we were like, trying to put some roads here. It was not there earlier. But now we know that, okay, in that same road, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, buses, trucks, commercial vehicles, pedestrians, even wheelchair-assisted vehicles also going to run that. So here we are talking about creating an omni-channel infrastructure, which really exists in a way where consumers or the users or the merchants, how are we going to give them the choice? Because we did spoke about giving a choice. At the same time, those choices are going to allow people to transact the way they want, and that's exactly the pull factor which I am going to see that automatically which is going to get created. Now, having said that, it's again connected with the user persona, so the user experience and the way they are experiencing seamlessness, the trusted element. Now, I'll tell you, recently we have done one POC with the India RBI Innovation Hub with the Tata Telematics and the TCS for LoRaWAN. Now, LoRaWAN technology is a very long distance Wi-Fi technology which is specially been done for the areas where the 2G, 3G, 4G networks are not been there. Now, when we talk about financial inclusion, ultimately we still need to have this transaction successful, whether it is Aadhaar or whether it is UPI, but not everybody has got a smartphone in their hand. So this kind of the technologies are actually going to evolve based on the requirement from the market. And similarly, that from the security standpoint, we are working very closely with Aadhaar. So they are very shortly coming out from the L1 layer, which is trusted secure element. Now, all of that is going to inculcate that sort of a peace of mind in the user. कि okay, मैं transaction करूँगा और मेरा transaction proper होगा, and I don't have to worry about that what's going to happen after that. So when we talk about the behavior again, I'm being a Mumbaikar from life. The way I travel my vehicle, I mean I ride my car, the buses or the rickshaw or the two-wheelers, the moment I will come to know eventually that where they are going to turn right and when they are going to take a right. Otherwise, there are no railroads existing with the infrastructure that discipline, lane cutting, signal, all of that which is not existing, but that's the regulator's role. Now to, bring in all of that so that the behavior which we want can be established. So that's why stress on innovation, at the same time user experience. And the devices and the form factor, I think it's a subset. We have lot many things, as I said, infrastructure which is there. 100 crore cars are there. But what about the payment infrastructure? Last 10 years we have struggled. Shanghai had got more terminals compared to the all over India before 3 years. Or even it has been the case. Similarly, we have so many debit cards. But how many cards are active? So we all need to bring in some sort of a convergence story here. And maybe I'll even talk about whether Aadhaar is there. But how many other use cases we'll be able to find out. You did spoke about Aadhaar Pay, right, sir? So, I mean, I'm really wanting that, how can I, buy my, biscuit in the Kirana store by using my Aadhaar or by waving my hand or a palm or a finger? And can it be really made possible? Yeah, so devices, as I said again, it's a subset of it, it can evolve. Number of possible ways.
So Parag and team is the device side or the acceptance side on which the BC channel runs, and there are multiple organizations supporting that, but they are taking a good lead in that. So thanks Parag for your views. Let us come back to Sumil. So what is the industry you are looking at for ATM recyclers? With DBU coming, digital banking unit happening by banks, they are putting in more and more DBUs now. What is the industry? You talked about 2X, but what is that you see?
So, for any, and at least from the cash point of view, any ecosystem to run very smoothly, you need a very potent cash in, cash out mechanism. Today, roughly, the cash in happens via recyclers and all the other methods that are there. But if you just see the ratio of recyclers that are there to the number of total terminals, they're roughly 25%. And industry benchmarks, developed economies are roughly at 50%. So I think the gap that I'm talking about, which is from 250,000 to 5 lakh terminals, once the adoption of interoperability, the cash interoperability has always been there, the deposit interoperability has always been there. But today we have roughly 15 constituents, 9 of them are cooperative banks, 1 of them is us, and balance 5 are private and public sector banks. I think so unless and until a full-fledged deposit interoperability doesn't get accepted, the top 3 banks on both sides, the private and public sector, doesn't adopt, that's the next leg. And once they kind of adopt, and it's kind of going to blow up. So that's where I think on the cash recycler side. With terms of DBUC, I think what ATMs did to the market, because we had some creative deployment models, commercial models, these IID, TOM, whichever you call it as, and with the support of banks and creative commercial models, the ATM really boomed up. I think, and the DBU is the next leg that is going to happen to the branches, because in terms of branches, you need a potential infrastructure which is very light, good UI UX, assisted, unassisted mode, depending on the geographies, you can instantly go and open and do all the services. In fact, I think there came a time there was ATMs, then there were white label ATMs. You never know. There are branches, there could be DBUs, there could be white label DBUs as well. I can just go to a DBU. I'm interested in opening around with an XYZ bank, and I can just do that on the fly. So that potentially could be the next leg. These are just hypotheses, but that's the way I think this will evolve.
Yeah, and you touch upon the interoperable cash deposit, and I think that is really, and we are also working with banks, and we are impressing upon them to take that journey, because more or less cash out. Of course, there are geographies to still cover, and to have more ATMs or dispensers, whichever mode of the issuing side can be. Maybe it is card or UPI, but that is more or less there, and it will solve for further. But the deposit is something, we have cash, we have income in cash, and this can actually help. So while speaking with banks, we understand sometimes it so happen that the whole managing cash is also a costly business. And then there are acquirers, like Hitachi as a white label ATM operator is live on and is supporting interoperable cash deposits. So there are acquirers who wants to be there in that space, serving for not only customer but the bank. So customers of the bank, if the bank have enabled it and they allow their customers, so they move those queues from tailors and from their branches, even if they have for their owners, to an entity which wants to support at a very effective cost.
Precisely.
And that helps. And I think that is the way which will definitely further. So UPI, I would say, the cardless part, which Ravi also spoke about, the interoperable deposits, I think that should definitely help in this. And with, as you rightly said, Android bringing down the cost, that is important, whether it is for operations of the ATMs or recyclers or the hardware per se.
Yeah, I mean, Android will no longer limit this to just a cash out or a transaction. You can, I mean, sky's the limit. You can just think of whatever plug and play systems that you want to enable on the banking systems, and it's just available on the fly.
Right, right. So, Sunil ji, on the assistant side, right? Again, I'll repeat that the cash out is more or less there. Cash in, you are aware that there is some more progress on AePS side for interoperable cash deposit. But what is that you think which can make 2x or more through Aadhaar-enabled payment system? Right, that is one of this which is interoperable. Of course, on honest, banks provide services for multiple other things, account servicing, or account opening, etc. But interoperable for the payment transactions or even non-financial transactions as well. What is that you see?
Yeah, so first of all, I think the 2x or 3x can happen simply because Parag talked about trust. So you have here a friendly neighborhood retailer who is trustworthy. It's not a Jamtara call. And secondly, you have the retailer being financially literate. So you have, that's why they are called Bank Mitra. And the outlets are called banking outlets. So you have significant amount of trust built in so that this can be pushed further. Talking about what more can be happen, we are right now sitting on an opportunity which is close to 2 to 3 trillion rupees of digitization. Today you have about 90 lakh or 9 million self-help groups. The entire cash dispensation from self-help group to members is today cash. And that's close to 2 to 3 trillion rupees or 2 to 3 lakh crore. That right now, just now, I think, Abhay, you launched Dual Auth.
Dual Auth, yes.
So the Dual Auth, Aadhaar Dual Auth has been launched, it is live. So that would give suddenly a large opportunity for the self-help group to dispense one money transfer to a bank account of the member and also cash out and also cash in. So if we talk about 2 to 3 lakh crore of opportunity for lending, which is happening through self-help group, it is about 25,000 crore per month if we just equalize it. And if we do cash in, cash out, all put together, we are talking about 2x to 3x to 4x opportunity of the digitizing cash on just self-help group alone. Thanks.
Thanks. So thanks to touch upon that. So Dual Auth. So banks were allowing the SAG. SAG are those accounts or JLGs. So these are the accounts where it is two signatory operated, right? Joint signatory. So two people have to authorize a transaction. And we launched that. 2 banks are onboarded and more will come. And the cash part, so to digitalize that journey, the 2 services, that is fund transfer, basis the beneficiary's Aadhaar number or basis beneficiary account and IFSC, both are launched yesterday, and these banks are supporting, and all the banks who has HG accounts will support that. It is one of the kind, again, as Ravi said, one of the kind. So a digital payment product having a ability to identify and authorize digitally 2 joint signatory account operating with something which we'll see at interoperable level, that is the important one. Honest level, banks do it offer in some mechanism, but at interoperable level. So coming to Ravi, yeah, so with emerging digital space, right, what's the role of digital cash and how it can be helping in digitalizing?
So that's a good question. So let me just kind of offer to you some of the thoughts that we have to leverage, what we built in the IMT payment system. So the first innovation that actually we're working on in partnership with the NPCI is the ability to send cash using just your Aadhaar. So you go to an outlet, it's an assisted transaction, that's what we've been discussing here. It's you go to an outlet of, say, the post office or one of the BC agents connected to a bank, you provide your Aadhaar number, you specify the beneficiary's mobile number and a code, and set up a code, which is what you need to withdraw an IMT transaction from an outlet. And we do an Aadhaar pay pull from the Aadhaar-enabled bank account into a pool account, and from there we simultaneously issue a payment, an SMS to the beneficiary, who can then go to an enabled ATM or one of these assisted outlets in order to get cash immediately. And this is an instant product. Now what it does is it leverages the extensive and now pervasive Aadhaar infrastructure, which is now a national good. And it is something that everyone uses on a day-to-day basis for everything. Whether you want to register a home or open a bank account, Aadhaar is absolutely essential. So it leverages, that particular infrastructure. The other way, of course, is to ensure that the cash system that we have in whatever form increasingly becomes interoperable with the RBI's determined push to go ahead on the CBDC side. So CBDC still is quite abstruse for a lot of people, but the moment the CBDC becomes convertible to physical cash, simply with a code, which is what we are working with one of the banks on the IMT payment system, then you will see CBDC adoption take off. Because I don't want to make the case for CBDCs, but it has a very clear national use case in terms of directing benefits, directing payments, and minimizing the use of physical cash. So in order to ensure that we build public confidence in that, we are working with one of the banks and also with the NPCI on enabling this particular conversion to happen. So what we are doing, Abhay, is we are sticking close to our mission. The mission is we regard that the licensing of IMT as a national payment system by the Reserve Bank of India is an act of trust. It's an act of national trust. So we run it with the piety necessary to recognize that a trust was reposed in us. We treat it as national infrastructure. So we find all possible use cases to ensure that we're able to leverage it in order to ensure that we're able to promote the cause of digitalization in India.
Sure. So when you say working, so I understand some discussions are happening, but we need to get bank partners to support it, right? So otherwise it becomes only the concept, right? What you talk about, but and that is more required because they hold the customers' account and they are the custodians of their money, so they should be participating, and we feel we'll eventually get.
There are two banks in play, but it is premature to talk.
Yeah. So I'm not expecting that response, but I'm just saying that's required. And you talked about public good, so digital public infrastructure, that is Aadhaar and UPI. And Parag, what you feel that how it can help in reaching the last mile? Of course, we are aware that we are doing more on feature phone, 1, 2, 3 pay, etc. But what you think from the acceptance side, if you see from that perspective?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting scenario where I see a convergence possibility between various other public or India's tech here. Even we have Aadhaar or we have even UPI now. By using that sort of a wonderful infrastructure in place, a lot of convergence can happen in various innovation. It could be POS, it could be micro ATM, it could be Aadhaar-led, it could be Soundbox, it could be tap and pay, it could be biometric card. Multiple ways can evolve ultimately to give a way to make a transaction possible, and that transaction is secured and overall can build the trust is what I'm looking at, and ultimately even looking at that user experience where I'm feeling comfortable. I'm not worried about that if my digital trail is going to get where, and that's where even I not want to keep any cash in my locker, but I will rather park it in the bank. And that's how this particular entire transaction scenario, which is where India is becoming a digital use case of the world. And a lot of innovation, which is going to spark, wonderful possibilities of, not only the inclusion of some poor people we are talking about anymore. We are done with 83% of financial inclusion, which is fastest we have achieved in last 6 years after Jan Dhan and DBT. But what is next? We are talking about even merchant inclusion now. We are talking about every even urban inclusion to even every citizen out here. How are they going to build that scenario for the transaction? And I firmly believe that only commercial transacting device is important here, though UPI and all of that online stuff which we talk about, but there is a transacting uh, device which is going to help in bringing that sort of a security. And that's how I could see that we are going to see that wonderful convergence and innovation in next 3 to 5 years in India.
Thanks. So the topics are good, and I think we are almost running out of time. So just concluding lines. We'll start with Sumil. Yeah.
No, so I think possibly, and I agree with all the panelists, in terms of there's a lot of innovation that needs to be done. The gap that I mentioned, the self-service part, one of the innovations could be about, we have ICCW on UPI. We can also have ICCD through UPI. So there is a lot of mile to be caught, and I think so between the four of us, we represent different factions of this whole segment. So I think time will tell.
Yeah.
Best of luck to all of us.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes.
Yeah, cash will move to digital cash. So EBDC is a very path-breaking innovation, and because it is the way it is, leads to more smartphone penetration of using digital payments compared to just pure UPI and UPI Lite. So I would believe that over a period of time, the cash out or cash BC business will move from just pure cash out to more cash out plus businesses, where you could have bill payments, insurance, ticketing, and lead journeys for credit, etc., being done. So that is where the extension of branch banking to branchless banking would happen in the true sense when we have this being done.
Sure. Ravi.
So I know we are out of time, so I'll keep it quick. So here's my 2 cents worth. Cash is never going out of fashion anywhere in the world. So to think that we can have a cashless society, I would respectfully say, is a dream. It will never happen.
Less cash.
But we can have a situation where we have legitimate financial behavior all happen through digital channels, because that is in the national interest. And where people wish to trade in cash, wish to deal in cash, we facilitate it, but figure out a way to move them towards digital cash, because cash is transaction cost free and it is completely anonymous. And something that is anonymous is not necessarily anti-national or bad, but we can never wish it out of fashion. And all the discussions that we've had, on this panel and also with the NPCI, is all about ensuring that we're able to manage cash in an increasingly digitalized India, and that is our contribution to this endeavor.
Sure. Parag.
Yeah, so very shortly, how we have wonderful possibility to do among 1.44 billion people in India, and to the last mile, and a lot of innovations which is going to happen. And with that sort of power which we are giving it to users, and ultimately we have a use case to get into the world where we are going to tech power the world with that scenario, that everybody can look that as a wonderful case studies out of India. And not only last mile we are talking about the whole universe out here.
Well said. So thanks, and just to summarize what the discussions held here, right? And what I see is, and that is what we each panel member touch upon, is if there is an ability for a customer of a bank to access their money anytime, whether it is midnight through self-assisted devices, self-mode devices, I would say, or during the day time with using of ATMs, if the person is able to do it at self mode, or where people and good profile of customers and populations there requires assistance, so through assist, if access to money is there, then the customer would definitely will have more ability to keep money more in bank, because they can withdraw whenever required, and then graduate towards digital journey. The form factors changing would, in the way, and Parag touched upon multiple form factors, in the way it can be from acceptance side or it can be from payment side. I think that gives a choice Sometimes too much choice is also difficult for a customer to choose. But I think the right equilibrium will come in place, and over a period, it will eventually come to few which are the important and more relevant use case. But there is a requirement. There is a requirement to have more machines. There is a requirement for interoperable cash deposits. There is a requirement to have more use cases on the assisted channel, which definitely will have drive financial inclusion. With this, I think we can conclude. Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? Like, if you can ask, if you want to ask somebody.
Yeah, I think so. We are in the lunch zone.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining.